Perfect. Well done, Matt. Thank you for doing that. And by the way, all of this, guys, comes thanks to Matt, who is our AV wizard. Woo-hoo! If you guys need to hire somebody to do AV, talk to Matt. Where I'd like to start tonight is Denny or Dick. Either one of you guys want to give us an update? Dick, you're on. All right.
Everybody knows we really haven't had too much activity since the COVID started. The only thing we've had is, which was actually to combine the IXCOM areas, was the Rally Colorado, which several of us participated in, and that went off really well, and I think everybody had a good time. I haven't heard anything about Turkey Day yet. I don't know, maybe nothing yet, huh? So that's the only one still in limbo that we have right now. The only new business I have is that our other repeater, we're making some progress in getting that. It looks like it's going to go over on Valor. And Tom, do you want to address anything on that since you're honchoing it?
Actually, after I meet with him tomorrow, then I will.
Okay.
Awesome.
So we're having Tom is kind of honchoing getting that up. So
We're just going to call 2 o'clock for Turkey.
So Randy, you're going to be take care of. Okay. So anyway, that's the only new news that I have of anything going on. Is the it looks like we might get the repeater up, not the spot we wanted, but at least we'll get it up and operational.
Tell everybody what repeater.
Oh,
Highlands Ranch DMR.
Highlands Ranch DMR. Yeah. Anybody didn't know, it's the Highlands Ranch DMR, and I know several of you that live in Highlands Ranch will be glad to get that up because I don't think you have coverage right now. A lot of you don't have coverage right now.
No, I was telling some of the guys earlier that Randy intends to link the Highlands Ranch and Silver Heights repeaters together,
Good.
which will be awesome for the Highlands Ranch guys.
They'll be permanently linked. They'll both be on the same talk group. They'll always be linked.
Because from Highlands Ranch, the only way you can get into Silver Heights is through a hotspot.
So that's going to be a big plus for all the members that live down in Highlands Ranch, and I think they'll have good coverage from Valor. That's the only news I have right now. Denny, go ahead. You got anything?
So yeah, it's really we don't have too much going on right now. Again, thank you, Matt, for setting this up, and Mark too for setting it up. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a little exercise with WinLink soon here. Part of the discussion today is for that, and we'll possibly be having a statewide set. John?
October 3rd.
October 3rd, okay. So mark your calendars and we'll get the details out when we know some more about it. Do you want to talk about it a little, John?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So, every year, ARESDEC Aries has a set. It's an emergency test. We're just starting the planning process now. We set the date for it about a week or 10 days ago. And there's a small team working on writing the exercise plan at this point. You know, it's good, once again, probably local focus where we do a lot of voice communications at the, to like a nominal EOC locally. And then there'll be some digital communications up to the state EOC or a nominal state EOC. There's some talk about integrating this with a Mars exercise, and we're working on that too. And we'd like to roll this into the second Red Cross exercise, which will take place in November. There was one March 30th. There wasn't Red Cross exercise. It involved Aries. So it wasn't ours to plan. We did not hear much about it as far as Aries. I was getting calls from people here locally, from the SEC up in Wyoming. No one really knew much. No one had heard anything from the Red Cross. So we're working on getting Aries liaisons in each of the 4 Colorado district Red Cross offices now to work with them and to try and get a little bit more integrated.
So when we get more info, we will what our plan is and get the tax along. September face-to-face sounds like a good, opportunity to talk about set quite a bit. So, make it easy on Mark and his plan. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have some other stuff too. Yeah, Turkey Day, 5K, don't know if it's gonna happen. Too early to be deciding on that, I think, for them. Really, we haven't had a lot of weather spotting either.
Well, we've been asked, but we couldn't get anybody out.
Well, that was one. So, yeah, that's all I got. It's been pretty quiet. We'll, let you know more on the exercise for Moonlink and everything. If anybody has any questions, big questions afterwards, we'll figure it out. Here.
Can I talk just a second about the Douglas County Fair?
Yep. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, beginning of August, we supported the Douglas County Fair. It was mostly a Douglas County Incident Management Team comm unit response, but the fair was a much reduced event from prior years. There was only one major event per day. There were no food vendors, there were no product vendors, there wasn't anything to wander around and look at. And so the communications demands were much diminished, and we needed fewer people. We only needed 2 people per shift for 5 shifts. And so we were able to fill those shifts with people that had served previously at the fairgrounds, but it was a successful event, and our support to the Douglas County Sheriff's Office and the fairgrounds was much appreciated. And it went very well. We didn't have any major incidents. We had one incident that happened, a domestic that went on that was rather interesting, but nothing like a code out and like we had last time.
I'll tell you, I took one call on the radio. And that was a weather question, that they got the weather watching.
Yeah, it was weird that at the same time that it was a reduced demand from the fair, the weather was also very cooperative, and we kept an eye on the weather, but there wasn't really anything possible. So, bottom line, we'll be asked to do it again next year, and hopefully the fair will be expanded beyond what it was this year. It'll be more communication.
I'm sure it'll be a lot bigger. Everything goes as planned. Hopefully I'll have some events next year. Yeah. I don't have anything else to, you did at all? He's hiding on that, okay, yeah. All right, Gary, you ready to go ahead?
Well, actually, we're gonna start with Randy.
What?
We're gonna start with Randy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Randy, go ahead.
All right. Well, I was asked to give a little history, I guess, because I'm old. To tell you how old I am, I made notes last night on my computer at home. That's where the printout is, on my computer at home. So, as best as I can from memory, the biggest exercise we did using WinLink was a statewide exercise where we staffed the state EOC, I think it was in 2015, 2014, 2015, around that time. What is that whistle?
It's the carpet cleaner.
Oh, okay. We used WinLink on 60 meters. We used one of the discrete 60-meter frequencies, and it worked pretty well. That was after a disastrous exercise that we had done at the state EOC about 5 years before that. But the one that we did at the state EOC, the only downside was we didn't have a problem because we were checking our inbox every minute. But people in the field, if they weren't checking their inbox, they didn't know they had traffic coming in. So we had an issue with how often people were checking their inbox. Well, WinLink doesn't like you checking your inbox every 30 seconds or every minute. So there was a little bit of issue with that. So we needed to establish a standard, which was never actually done. But that was the only downside of that exercise. It worked beautifully on 60 meters. We had a lot of traffic. I want to say site, and remember, we had 115, 120 messages come in, from the field, and probably 25 or 30 went out, and it worked beautifully. Let's talk, yeah, Fred.
So in addition to 60 meters that year, we also did
We did
80 and 40.
Yeah, well, we tried 80 and 40.
Well, 80 didn't work at all, 60
Right.
worked pretty good, and then when, the band got too long for 60, we went to 40. We used that
That's right.
pretty well.
That's right.
But explain why 60 was an important part of that exercise.
Well, the number one is because the military was gonna be involved in it. So there was a cross pollination there. The other thing is that 60 is channelized. So everybody goes to exactly the same frequency, and most of the radios out there have those frequencies already programmed. Even my old 857 that I've resurrected and started playing with has all the 60 meter frequencies programmed.
One other reason, it's the only ham band, HF ham band that allows for voice and data at the same time.
That's a good point too.
At the same time. So what you can do on 60 that you can't do on any of the other ham bands is coordinate, say, okay, you ready to receive my message or it comes.
That's good.
Without changing bands or frequency.
So we'll flash forward to, or flash back about 5 more years to the first time we tried it at the ADOC. Didn't try it on HF. We were trying to do VHF through a couple of nodes. Didn't have a good outside antenna, so we were trying to do it with an antenna inside the building, which you can see the mountains, but that passivated glass doesn't let you talk to the mountains. And it was just about useless. I think what we ended up doing to get some traffic through, somebody went out to the car. It might even have been me. I think I may have gone. Did you go out to the car?
Out to the parking lot, that's the name of this antenna.
Oh, no, because we were doing VHF and UHF. That wasn't an HF exercise.
Oh, yes, right, I remember.
There was-
Walking up to the top of the.
Right. We have done several events, but none recently in ARESDEC. We had a commissioner exercise, and I can't remember what they actually called that exercise. It was a coordination with the commissioner's briefing room, where we ran it from the admin building down the county up to the EOS to the stadium.
I can't remember what that exercise was called. Well, we started out on 1200, doing great on 1200 on VHF, and since we have D710s in the EOC, and Adam had his 710 down at the county admin building, we said, let's see if we can do 96, which none of us had done at that point. So we clicked around, found frequency, set up for 9600, and bingo, man, we're sending email like it was on the internet. And we even started sending pictures and maps and all kinds of stuff. And the commissioners were impressed. We did a great job with that. But that was a great VHF exercise on Moonlight. The other thing that was really impressive, and it was the first time I think we had demonstrated it to the county, was that we were able to send messages to their emails. So we could go straight into their emails, which is one of the beauties of using Moonlight. And somebody in the field could send a message directly to who they wanted to send it to if they had their email address. We could send stuff. They could answer back once they'd been whitelisted. And it worked like a champ. So that was an excellent exercise. A couple other times we played around with trying to do our own internal exercises. We did one where we were trying to run from, this is a long time ago, from the Parker, when we used to meet over at the Parker Fire Headquarters. We tried running from there back to DCEOC. And it was before we had the 710s. I don't even remember what radios we were using. But it got to the point where it worked out better to use text on the phone. You were involved in that one.
I'm the one that, yeah,
We had a bunch of names to send,
yep.
and we weren't getting anywhere doing it with packets, so we got a cell phone. And it was the old style too. It wasn't a smartphone where you've got a keyboard. It was for A you hit 2, for B you hit 2 for C you, and you know, I can't remember who it was that fed us the names. Was that it was Mark Kelly. Fed us the names.
That is the names, I mean, they were all kinds of bizarre foreign names, you know.
He used a bunch of Russian names.
He used a bunch of Russian names and Polish names, you know. Yeah. Like, you know, remember Wojciechowicz? It spells just like it sounds. Yeah, right. But it worked. But WinLink didn't work for that. We've played with WinLink several times. We've had a couple exercises. I remember we did one over at Parker United Methodist in the basement, where we set up in the basement and set up a whole bunch of radios on dummy loads to do HF. Now it's kind of fun once we figured out that some of those dummy loads are really tight. I've got one that's just an attenuator with a heat sink on it, and that thing is so tight nothing gets out. The old MFJ one that's a resistor inside of a can so you can't touch it, or not a can but a cage. That one looks pretty good, so it worked. But
Just like some of their antennas.
just like something works pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. Those are the exercises and the events that I remember we've used WinLink for. We've talked about using it 2 or 3 times when we were deployed for shelters, but we never actually had to do it. And I don't think we really had people in the field that were capable of using those. Anybody else remember others?
Comment on the one with the county. So that exercise was not just county commissioners, it was all of the policy groups in the county.
That's right, it was called the policy group exercise, wasn't it?
Because the county commissioner's policy room had just been built, completed
That's right.
at the building on 3rd Street. What's its name?
Yeah.
It moved out of the
It was in
ESC.
the middle of the building.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that event took place.
It's the Miller building, but yeah.
Because they were set out on a card table the hams were set up on a card table in the hall, but they didn't want them in that policy room.
Right.
So they were running messages in and out. They said, just switch your email.
So you had people from Castle Rock,
Parker.
the town councils, Castle Rock, Parker, Lone Tree, Islands Ranch.
Larkspur.
Larkspur was there, Larkspur Fire was there.
Yeah.
We were briefed before that exercise that in a policy room, it can get nasty and near fisticuffs. And to not be surprised and to not get involved if it happens.
And I think we chose to be outside just to avoid the potential.
Yes.
But I've also been in the EOC when it got pretty interesting a couple of times. So. Those are things you just, when you go out the door, you just close the door and drain it.
What happens in the policy room stays.
Or the EOC.
Or the EOC.
Anybody else remember events that we've done with WinLink?
So,
Or
not,
packet?
not events for us, but I thought it was interesting that this month's ARRL Aries E letter, if you haven't signed up for the Aries E letter, it's a monthly, Aries-oriented newsletter that the ARRL sends out. This month, I think there were 5 different articles that mentioned WinLink in different situations and circumstances. One interesting one was North Carolina ARESDEC and what they're doing for the state of North Carolina with WinLink. So firmly entrenched in the area community.
And for those of you that are on the call, I didn't realize that the camera was looking right at my nose, so I apologize.
Yeah, so Harry just mentioned North Carolina races. So next month there'll be an Oxcom streaming video meeting. So we're gonna, all of the Oxcom members should receive something via SWIFT 911 regarding that. The North Carolina, guy from North Carolina is gonna talk to us.
3030 is another one that we've used recently with.
Yeah, we used it effectively during 30 to transfer, large amounts of information. There've been some other sets where things didn't go as well because everyone's on packet. We couldn't get out at the KDOC. There's also kind of a lack of discipline too. Maybe not discipline, but just a lack of training as to what the role of the EOC is. So we're receiving WinLink messages from the field all over the state. Exercise, the fires just crested this hill. Well, if you're out in El Paso County or in Douglas County, for that matter, you're not going to send that message to the state EOC. What does the state EOC do? They coordinate and allocate resources.
They don't really need to know that. They'll be getting updates, those types of updates from their field managers. So what you need to do, what people need to do is if you're using WinLink, send it to your local people, send it to your area leadership. They'll consolidate those messages and decide which ones need to be moved forward. Because that was a big problem in this 2 years ago, where we were just inundated with all of these messages that should have never been sent to the state EOC. That's a training issue. We're going to get stronger. We're really pushing the use of WinLink here in the state. And one of the things that we want to do too is, while peer-to-peer has its roles, we want to demonstrate, the big, why we're using WinLink is because there's internet's out at one location or the other or both. Our ability to use HF and go outside of our region, connect to someone in Texas or Salt Lake City or Mexico City and have the message still get through, is really important. It's a great thing for us to demonstrate to our survey agencies.
So, a couple other thoughts. The Colorado Springs Area District, R2D2, has been using WinLink for a few years now to support Pikes Peak car race. And so they're sending finish times from the top of the mountain down to the bottom of the mountain where the race officials are. So they're using actually UHF, Packet, and WinLink to complete that.
And just another thing that ARESDEC members should be aware of, and it's a point of pride, when we did the WinLink exercise back in March, they had twice as many people respond as ARESDEC. So let's change that the next time we do that.
Sounds like a challenge.
And in thinking about how WinLink would be used in a real-world incident for our Aries district, one of its best uses is to send 213 RRs, resource requests, into an EOC from the field.
This is Hal.
That's where it really shines.
Oh, this is Hal. Oh, hey, we're in the hospital liaison hat. I was just going to say, for the last year or so, more often than not, when we ran hospital nets, we'd set up 2 radios, and while the net control was running the net, I would be using the other radio to do WinLink, demonstrating that to the hospital emergency manager. And if they weren't there, we'd send them emails to home. But they really, at both Parker and Skyridge, they really like that capability to be able to send text and attachments. Although there's some size limitations, they really like that ability, and to be able to send attachments out. So the hospitals, we've demonstrated WinLink as part of our nets that we operate. Just wanted to throw that out.
Other comments from online? Okay, hearing none, I do have a question. Randy, when you were using 60 meters channel loss, it can take a while to send a single WinLink message, and if you had all that traffic, didn't you guys just step all over each other?
It didn't take all that long. It really didn't. I don't remember any message taking more than a minute.
Okay.
To pass. No, they weren't big long messages, but it went pretty fast. Remember, we're in peer-to-peer mode. So
Yeah, so we actually set up a computer and radio in the state EOC that was sort of the catcher, and everybody was to send reports and updates into the state EOC. And the biggest problem that we had was, because you're 60 meters, you're channelized, too many people trying to call in at the same time. And figuring out how to try and organically get people to space out their attempts to connect was a real challenge.
That's why using the RMS stations and the CMS is so important, is you don't have to connect to one computer. There are dozens out there that you can connect to, and dozens of channels.
When you say RMS and CMS, what do you mean?
If I try and talk to, I think everyone in here who uses WinLink probably knows, like John Maxwell has a station up in the foothills. So he has an RMS station. If you send a WinLink message to him, it's going to connect to the internet. It'll get routed through the redundant CMS stations. And then when David D goes to log in to see if he has any messages, he's gonna connect to an RMS, which is connected to the CMS, and it's gonna pull his information down. Sort of gateways.
So not
Yeah.
very familiar with the structure of the WinLink network. You have at the core multiple CMS or centralized messaging systems, core messaging systems. And they're now, the Amateur Radio Safety Foundation is using Amazon Web Services to interconnect the CMS nodes. Then on the outside, hub and spoke, right, that's the hub. The spokes are RMS stations around the world that can receive RF, and they have connections from their local RMS station into the internet, and that's how they get into the CMS port.
Other RMS is relay. Relay mail.
It's going to be even more complicated because now they're setting up RMS to RMS stations where you can do store and forward. That's a topic for when we have more time.
Great. You know, actually, I think this is a perfect lead-in where I think Gary's going to talk to us a little bit now about WinLink over VHF and UHF and this new mode of Vera FM, I believe it's called. Gary, are you ready for us?
I'm ready. Can you guys hear me?
All right. All yours. Yes, we can.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I was asked to talk basically about the Kenwood TMD 710 radio. Since a lot of us have that radio, and as has been mentioned tonight, those radios are at the hospitals. So we should all probably be pretty familiar with these radios. Even if we don't own one ourselves, it might be good to kind of look at the manual and figure out how to operate these radios. They're really very simple. All right, let me share my screen here. And by the way, I am down in my basement, down underneath the ground, and the air conditioner fan's probably going to kick on here at some point, so hopefully that's not going to be too loud for everybody. So we'll see how it goes. All right. So where does the Kenwood TMD 7, by the way, there's just a few slides here on PowerPoint. Don't worry, I don't have a whole bunch of PowerPoint. So where's the Kenwood fit in on all this? Well, I don't even know if you could say arguably, but I would say it's the best all-in-one VHF, UHF transceiver for WinLink and APRS. I qualify that with WinLink and APRS, which WinLink is basically packet, APRS is also packet. And what makes it so great is that the radio has a packet TNC, AX.25 TNC, built into the radio itself. So you don't have to have an external TNC. It's all right in the radio, which makes it super, super easy to use. The G version that they came out with after the original version has a built-in GPS as well, which works great with APRS. Makes it very simple. Again, one box. And you've got everything you need just contained in one radio. It's a true dual band radio, so you can have packet on one VFO and voice comms on the other VFO. And as Randy mentioned a little while ago, it's capable of doing both 1200 and 9600 baud packet. Does 9600 baud packet really well. In fact, it's probably the best radio out there on the amateur market to do 9600 baud. And it's very quick to deploy in the field. All right, with the TNC that's built into it, when it comes to using WinLink with this particular radio, there's two modes. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see these are all the sessions that you can have within WinLink Express. You got Telnet WinLink, you got Packet WinLink, Pactware, blah, 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 go down the list here. And then below that, you've got the peer-to-peer modes that you use. Hopefully, this is not going to be a WinLink lesson. I mean, you can ask questions, certainly, if you're confused about something on WinLink. But we're not going to go too in depth with WinLink tonight. It's just too big of a topic right now. So it kind of assumes maybe you're familiar with a lot of the WinLink operations here. So when it comes to the TMD 710, you can use it with Packet WinLink, and you can use it with Packet peer-to-peer, because is a TNC. It's an AX.25 TNC that's built into the radio. So therefore, that means it does packet. And so these are the only two modes that you can actually use the radio with. But that's fine because there's a lot of ways you can use packet when dealing with WinLink. And just a reminder that all these up here at the top that say WinLink, these are going to be WinLink connections back to an RMS gateway station, as people have talked about, and then that connects to the CMS mail servers out in the cloud. And so your mail or your message that you send through one of these WinLink modes is going to go out into the cloud, into their mail server. And so you're expecting the other person to also connect to the cloud and retrieve that message from those mail servers. The bottom ones, the P2P or the peer-to-peer modes, these are modes that you connect directly to another station. So you're not going out through the cloud. So that's the big difference. That's just a kind of a little refresher there between the WinLink modes and the peer-to-peer modes. Very simple hardware to hook this stuff up. You've got the TMD710. You've got a cable. In this case, it's the Kenwood PG-5G. Does it come with the radio? No, it does not. You have to order it separately. And it's about $30 or $40. Probably costs them $3 to make. But, you know, ham manufacturers have to eat too. So, you know, that's how they make a lot of their money is on accessory cables. And then, of course, you need a computer as well. And that's it. That's all you have. Very, very simple. Now, the PG-5G cable is this mini DIN connector to a DB9. Well, not too many laptops anymore have DB9s. So you're probably going to have to get up here at the top. You see a serial to basically a DB9 serial to a USB connector. And then you'll hook your USB to your laptop, and the DB9 end of the Kenwood cable goes into the DB9 connector of the adapter. These are, you know, these are fairly cheap. You can get them on Amazon in a million places, but they're another $20 or $30. So you got to consider you've got to have these two cables, and that's all you need right there. That's it. You just got the radio, the cable, and the computer. Pretty darn simple. And it's because the radio has yes.
The RT Systems cable will also work.
Yes.
And that's directly to Mini 610 to USB.
Okay. Yeah, and there are some other third-party cables out there that you can find on eBay and such. I tend to shy away from some of the odd ones, the Chinese ones or whatever. I bought some and been bought or been taken. They didn't work very well, so I kind of stayed away from them. But yeah, you're right. There are more than just the Kenwood cable out there on the market. Now, I don't know if any of you watched the videos, the links that were sent out, that the really nice videos that have been done by Ollie, K6OLI, Oliver, and he's with the Los Angeles Aries groups, and he's done some great videos on how to use WinLink. And I heard him in one of his videos. He said, you know, our goal is to be able to arrive at a location and set up a WinLink station within 15 minutes. And this right here, what you see on this screen right now, that should take you a minute. You know, to be quite honest with you, there's just not much to it. You plug in this cable, and typically you may even already have it connected to the radio all the time, and you plug it into your laptop. What's going to take longer is getting Windows fired up, of course, because it can take several minutes. But then it's running your antenna and your coax, and it's getting your power situation set up. Those are what could possibly take you longer and may extend it out to 15 minutes, depending on the location where you're located. But this part of it, guys, is super, super simple. There's just not much to it at all. All right, where to hook up? This is something that confuses everybody when they first bought these radios. It's extremely confusing because it's got basically 3 jacks, 3 of these mini DIN connectors. There's 2 on the back of the radio chassis itself, and then there's 1 on the back of the head, which is, of course, remotable. So everybody was saying, oh, okay, I'm going to go plug into on the back of the chassis there where it says PC. And they'd plug in there. Well, that doesn't work because that connector, all that is used for is to basically kind of do a code plug. It lets you go in and set frequencies. It retrieves the frequencies. It lets you some of the settings of the radio. And you use Kenwood's, I think it's the MCP6A software, to talk to the radio through that port. And that's all that port does. You know, it does not talk to the TNC that's built into the Kenwood radio. What you have to use is the one that's on the back of the head. That's the one that talks to the TNC, because the actual microprocessor chip that's doing the TNC work is located in the head. So it made sense. You know, let's put the connector right there close to where the microprocessor is that's doing that service. And you also have on the back of the chassis the standard 6-pin data connector. Now what that can be used for is you can use it for an external TNC if you don't want to use the one that's built into the Kenwood radio. For example, if you want to use a Cantronics, which has more features, and some people, you know, just kind of prefer to use a Cantronics. So that's fine. You don't have to use the TNC that's in the Kenwood radio. If you want to use a Cantronics, which has more memory and more mail message storage and all that, then you certainly can. You can use the 6-pin connector on the back to connect to that particular TNC. It can also be used with a external USB sound card, like the SigmaLink USB. And you can therefore use it with any of the sound card modes. And of course, VARA is the most current one that everybody seems to be enthralled with and is playing with. So that's how you would use VARA with this particular radio. You just have to have an external USB to work with the radio. All right, we're going to stop this right here.
So Gary, that was a stock picture of the radio, right? That wasn't your picture. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh no, that's a stock picture. It's too clean. Mine's not that clean.
I'm just trying to figure out where somebody got one with an in connector on it.
Oh, I noticed that too. And I don't know if this is a European version, maybe. I don't know.
It's got to be a European model.
Yeah, I saw that too. I go, wait a minute, mine doesn't have that. Mine has an SO239. So, but anyway, the rest of it's the same there. But yeah, that's a pretty good one there. All right, let me stop that. That. And we'll see. All right, you guys can see the radio, right?
Yeah.
Nice and big. All right, just a real quick refresher here on the radio. We're not going to go too far in depth on the radio itself, but no, we're just going to talk about some of the points that relate to using it with WinLink and Packet in particular. So the radio, like we said, is a dual band radio. So you've got a VFO on the left, you've got a VFO on the right. They call the one on the left the A band. They call the one on the right the, guess what? B band. There you go. So A band, B band. And this is a typical scenario here where you might have packets set up on the A band and you have voice communications on the B band. So we could talk on Victor 21 right now on the B band while it's doing packet stuff over here on the A band. The TNC can only work with one of the bands. You have to pick. Do you want the TNC assigned to the A band or do you want the TNC assigned to the B band? So you have to make that choice. Default from the factory is it's on the A band. And this little D right here that you see on the screen, that tells you this is the band that's set up to be your digital mode. So right now, that's a quick, easy way to make sure you know which band is actually the one assigned to the TNC. The other important thing, other than, of course, frequency, you got to be able to set your frequency here, is up here at the top where it says Packet 12. The TNC that's built into this also does APRS, and they've got special software written in their programming for APRS only. And over here on the right is this TNC button that's assigned to the hard button that's just next to it. If I click that, it cycles through the various settings for the TNC. So now it's on APRS 12, which means APRS 1200 baud. So that's what we would use if we're using this radio for APRS. If I hit TNC again, it now cycles to the Packet 12, and now we're on regular old Packet radio 1200 baud, and this is what we have to be on to work with WinLink. Don't be on APRS 12, it won't work. So, you know, you got to have it on Packet, and it could be either Packet 12 or it'll say Packet 96 if it's set to 9600 baud, and we'll look at that in a second and so see how you change that. And you click it one more time, it'll actually go to nothing. And you might want to do that if you're going to use that 6-pin connector on the back and have an external TNC. or if you're going to use a signal link USB, you might just want to just turn the TNC off completely on the radio at that particular point in time. All right, I'm going to turn it back on here, take it out of APRS 12, which takes a while to set up, and then we'll go back to packet. Okay. So any questions just on the front of the radio here? Does anybody have any questions on any settings or any buttons you have to push? Okay, cool. All right, let's open up our WinLink. Everybody should be familiar with this, I know, right? This is WinLink Express software. And I will go ahead and maximize this. A couple things in here. Again, we're not going to cover WinLink in great depth, but a few of the important things to always remember up here in the upper left. Make sure your call sign, or the call sign that your station is going to be called. If you're working at a location, say this is a WA0DE call sign, and different operators come in and out of here. You just got to make sure this is set up to the call sign of what everybody expects your station's call sign to be. Okay, and you can put multiple different call signs in here. For example, I've got several call signs in here, and I can use any one of these call signs if I want to. This is my wife's call up here, and then I've got my call with -1, -2, -3. Okay, so I can use any one of these. So I got to make sure that I've got it set to the right one when I'm communicating. So very, very important. If all you ever do is use your own call sign, then that's going to be the only one in there. But you can add more call signs if you have to. Okay, so back over here to our sessions. We looked at this a little bit earlier on the PowerPoint slide. So these are all the options that you have. And remember, out of the WinLink group here, which one do we use to work with the D710? Come on, somebody.
WinLink.
Packet WinLink, that's correct. So we'll just click on Packet WinLink there. And we're going to open up a session. And whenever you open up a session in WinLink Express, there are settings for every one of these different sessions. And as soon as you click on this Open Session button here, and it's really not a button, but it's kind of weird. I don't know why they didn't make this a button, but it's just the lettering, the text. You click on that, and it opens up the session. And what it's doing is it's going out and it's looking at the settings that we have set up in settings here. And it's good. In fact, we'll just take a look at that real quick. I'll click on settings. And these are the settings that I have in here. And if you do the drop down on this particular window, these are all the different TNCs that the software knows how to talk to, which covers pretty much everything you're going to run into these days. There might be some oddballs out there, old ones especially, that it doesn't know. It just isn't going to know how to talk to them, so you can't use it. But you can use all of these, and Kenwood has a bunch in here. It's got their handheld units, which work pretty much the same as the D710. Their handhelds do a great job too, both the 1200 baud and 9600 baud, so you can talk to them with WinLink. So that makes a really portable package at that point. The D700, which is the older radio before the 710, still a bunch of them out there, and they just work. They're a workhorse too, and they just work and work and work for years and years and years. And then you've got the 710. You'll notice there's two. There's 710 A band and D710 B band, because remember, you assign which of those VFOs, the A or the B, is going to have the TNC. So you got to make sure in here that you pick the correct band that you've assigned on your radio. So you got to kind of have to know that. Again, the default is, yes.
The D72 and D7, will that handle the D74 as well?
You know, that's not in here. I don't know. I don't have a D74, so I couldn't tell you 100% for sure. Okay. Yeah. It is kind of interesting why it's not listed, though, because you'd think they'd update this if they did. And it's because the 74 has been pretty popular, too. I'd be curious to know if somebody's got one and has tried it. Anyway,
they'll try it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'd like to find out. So we're obviously going to pick a D710 A band because that's what ours is. The serial port, this serial port setting here, COM1 on my laptop, oddly enough, is not that old, but it was one of the last that actually had a DB9 connector on the back. So it's COM1. So I kind of got it easy. I can take that PG 5G cable from Kenwood, and I take that DB9, just goes right into the DB9 connector on the back of my laptop. I don't have to convert it to USB or anything. So that's kind of nice. So that's what this serial port setting is for. And then the baud rate is 9600 baud. That's the speed at which my laptop is talking to the TNC that's in the radio. Down below here under TNC parameters, you've got a selection between 1200 baud and 9600 baud. This is where you can pick between operating at 1200 baud packet or at 9600 baud packet. So this sets the baud rate over the air. This baud rate up here is just between your computer and the TNC and the Kenwood, so don't get those two confused. And once you make any changes here, you just click update, and it will update the settings for you at that particular point. So I'll just go ahead and click them there. And you notice it goes back and it reinitializes, and it's going to load it up. If you get the initialization complete and ready, that's a good sign. That means it has talked successfully to the TNC that you have selected in your settings, and you're ready to go at that particular point and time. If you get a fail, yep.
Very quick question. So those TNC settings that we saw up on the screen, those were defined by the radio that you picked, is that correct?
These right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're defaults, actually. If I change them, like I know maximum frames, it may default to 4. If I change that to 4 and I click update, it's going to pop up a little window here. And it says, oh, recommended max frame size is less than 128. Max frames is less than or equal to 2 for Kenwood and Alinco radios with internal TNCs. So it's kind of telling me, it's giving me a warning that, yeah, you might want to change that to 2. It'll actually still work on 4, but I go ahead and change it to 2 just to make this happy so I don't get this little screen popping up and yelling at me. But the default, you may find some of these may be a little bit off, and it'll let you know. You know, if you change your frame size to like 256, like right here, this maximum packet length of 256, it's going to pop this up. And so you really should set it for 128 or less. And that's one of the, I guess, deficiencies. The TNC that's in this radio is good, but it's not a Cantronics. You know, a good Cantronics, a KPC 3 Plus or the KPC 9612 Plus, is really a better TNC, and you can set the frame size up to 256 if you want to and survive with those, no problem. So that is one of the kind of the limitations of the built-in TNC, but this is a minor limitation. So, you know, it's fine to keep your frame size at 128, your max frames to 2. Okay, so I'm gonna say no, I'm gonna go back and change this to 2 and update again. This time it shouldn't give me the little screaming window, and so I'm fine. I wouldn't go in and necessarily change all of those settings. You can play with them, but just be careful because you can really mess things up if you go in there and start playing with those too much and get them out of whack, and it won't work as efficiently as it should. All right, so I'm ready to go. My TNC is set up. It's been initialized. It's complete. I'm ready. Okay, so my packet WinLink session is like cocked and ready at this particular point in time, and I'm set for 1200 baud. In this particular case, I'm going to go to W0ARP-10 because I can hit Wayne's location pretty good, although I do have just a very cheesy little antenna on this radio at the current time, so I don't know if I can actually get to him real well. But
hey,
that's what I got. Yes,
Well, why an SSID of -10?
That's what most RMS gateway stations will have. They're on the WinLink network. So if I go up here to channel select, and that's another thing I can show you here. Channel selection, you see up here at the top on the session window. If I click on that, what it's going to do, it's going to show me all of the local, or actually within 100 miles, of my location. And of course, my location is based upon settings that I have on the first part of WinLink Express. It's going to show me all of the local stations in my area. It's going to show me their frequency. It's going to show me their baud rate. You notice all of these have -10. That's just the common SSID that they assign to WinLink RMS gateway stations. So this is handy. If you oh gosh, you know, where was what frequency was this guy on? just go to your channel selector here, and it will give you the list of everything that's in your area. So that's pretty handy. So W0ARP, Wayne, he's closest to me. He's only 12 miles away. He's got a 1200 and he's got a 9600 baud gateway. So that's very nice. The other one that works really well is K0NTS. It pretty much covers a very broad area. W0VG does pretty good as well when it's up and running. I don't know if it's 9600 is up and running at the current time. Sometimes I can't get into it, but anyway. And some of these I'm not quite sure where they are. I'm not sure where LRA is. I have to go look it up. But anyway, if anybody knows where the grid square DN70KJ is, it's going to be north of us. So he must be up north somewhere. Okay, so that's the channel selection. That's pretty handy. Okay, if I hit start, and we're just going to do this real quick. It shouldn't hopefully take too long. And I don't know if I can get to Wayne real well, so this may hang up or not quite finished. But I'll just click start. And you may also hear some buzzing here on my microphone as it radio might be getting into the microphone a bit. And it says I'm connected. And I guess I can turn up the volume. And so basically Wayne's RMS station is now going out and it's connecting to the CMS server. It says connected to CMS. And you can see that. And then it's going out to see if I have any mail out there under the call sign WB5PJB. Again, that's up here in the upper left. That's what it's going to use to go out and see if I have any mail. And it's taking quite some time here. It's a little bit long. Of course, Wayne's station, it hears a whole lot better than mine when I have a crummy antenna on here. So it's possible he's hearing some traffic, and so his isn't going to transmit on top of somebody. So it's going to wait until the frequency's clear, so sometimes it can take a little while. Now, if you do 9600 baud, it's much clearer frequency, and it's faster, and this goes really, really quick. Okay, so that's it. That's done. I just did a connection to Wayne's RMS gateway station and retrieved a message. So that's super simple, guys. I mean, all I have here is the TMD710. I've got my laptop, and I've got the cable between the radio and the laptop. And then, of course, I've got an antenna hooked up to the radio and a power supply hooked up to the radio. But other than that, that's all that it takes to do a WinLink session with a TMD 710. TMD 710. That's all it takes. Any questions on that process at all? Pretty straightforward.
One statement, Gary.
Yep. The statement. Why don't you go ahead?
When you channel select, if you noticed one of those columns said the distance each of those channels, and LRA is 75 miles away, so I don't think you could hit him from there.
Oh, no, not with the antenna I have currently. No, not at all. It's just literally my antenna sitting on top of the grate that's, on top of the basement escape.
On the other side of a pile of dirt from you, probably. Anyway, he's down in the flatlands to the north above Boulder.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. And then somebody had a question? Hang on, let me turn that down.